Episode number 343, Tips for Presentation Software Operators with Dave Fry. Let's do it.
This is the definitive podcast for helping you plan, create, and execute dynamic worship experiences at your church. Useful, practical content in the areas of production, worship, communications, first impressions, and more. This is Making Sunday Happen.
Hey guys, this week's episode of the show is brought to you by our friends at Sociable.Church. They are really helping churches up their church marketing game, helping you connect your community with God's story. My buddy Sean Reese will be on in just a minute to tell you all about it. On this week's show, I'm talking with Dave Fry. Dave is the Director of Product Development and Senior Technician at MediaShout. We're going to talk all about the software, all about some great tips for lyric and video operators, no matter which presentation software you use on Sunday. Dave is an integral part of the inner workings of the design of MediaShout and can really bring some great insight into how to accomplish the needs of presentation operators on Sundays. He's the guy who goes in and fixes the software based on the suggestions of people using it at churches on Sunday. Fantastic guy. You're going to love hearing from Dave today. All right, so we will talk all about that with Dave today.
Every church wants to grow. And as pastors, it's our mission to see that our communities are changed with the power of the gospel. It's no secret that growing a church and reaching a community is hard. It takes countless hours of hard work and sometimes even sleepless nights of strategizing, praying, studying, and trying to figure it all out. And I'm not going to stand here and tell you that I have the secret to make all that go away. I won't be the one to tell you how to grow overnight, and I don't have 3 easy steps to double your attendance. Hard work is always just going to be part of the equation. Out of all the pastors I know and interact with, hard work is rarely the problem though. The biggest issue I see is they don't know where to start. So often you have multiple jobs as a pastor, and many of those jobs you've never been trained to do, you've never learned them, and you're just doing the best you can. I get that. I've been there a lot in my 20 years of ministry, and that is the entire reason that I started Sociable.Church. I want to help you forge the path to reach your community and grow your church in the process. And when it comes to church marketing and in-house systems and processes and ways to reach people, it is difficult to know where to start. How do you turn guests into attenders? And then how do you turn attenders into members and members into ambassadors? It all starts with follow-up. Follow-up is an ever-growing and never-ending process. To help you get started, I've created a multi-layered follow-up jumpstart plan for new guests, and I want you to have it for free. All you have to do is go to my website, sociable.church/follow-up. Fill out the 2-question form, and I'll send it right to your email inbox. This plan is a jumpstart to your follow-up process. Even if you already have one in place, there are tons of things that you can plug in wherever you need them. In the Jumpstart, I've added a 3-week guest follow-up funnel, which is designed to help you take your guests into their next steps. I've also added 3 to 4 week funnels for salvation, baptism, groups, and serving. I've added connection points and a plan your visit strategy with scripts for text and email. I've also added explanations on how to set all of this up so it can be automated, and a ton more. This really is free. Just go to sociable.church/follow-up and you can download it there.
Hey guys, today I welcome Dave Fry. Dave is the Director of Product Development and the Senior Technician at MediaShout. Dave, welcome, man. Thanks so much for hanging out.
Well, thanks for having me.
Man, really appreciate you guys and what you guys do at MediaShout. I know a lot of our clients that come and get media from us use you guys. So we're kind of a very good handshake in that you provide the software, we provide the media, and back and forth. So we're just so grateful for everything that you guys do for the kingdom.
Well, good. Thank you. That's definitely our goal. We exist to serve the church, and hopefully we do that as we can.
Well, tell me a little bit about your background and experience. How did you get to MediaShout? How long have you been there? And give me the background.
Well, it's a long road, so I'll summarize as quickly as possible. I do start in my early teens running sound, because really sound was kind of church media back in the day when that's really all there was. And then there became overhead projectors. And so some of us remember those days. Our gray and bleached hair is showing it at times, but moved up through audio, and that really helped set me up and helped me a lot of times for the things that I do today. Spent through high school working in being in some traveling music groups and in band, and then was interested in the music business. Ended up spending a couple years at Moody Bible Institute and studying there. Started off in missionary aviation, of all things. God used that to get me there. And then once he got me there, he said, you know what? You've already got skills in communications and strong interest there. And so I started studying mass comm there. And then I met my wife. We got married and decided to move to Nashville. So came to Nashville to really be a recording engineer, very interested in production of CCM music and things like that. And so came here and did that for a few years, did some studio tech work. But, anybody who's worked in the music business knows that stability isn't exactly the name of the game. So really decided it was time to try to grow up and get a real job. And so went back to school and studied electrical computer engineering for a few years, and then ended up coming back to Nashville. So in that time period, when we came back to Nashville the last time, we started attending a large church. This was in the early 2000s, and they were using this new software, MediaShout, putting words on screens and video. And it was fascinating technology. And having been educated and interested in computers and all those production things for quite some time, I volunteered to help out. I was involved in a lot of other things. I was on the worship team and choir and in drama. And so I was already around. So I'm like, hey, if you need to fill a gap in the schedule, I'll be glad to help. So I started doing that. And that really introduced me to the software, and it was very fascinating. So then I found out later, because I didn't even know that at the time, they were here. They're in Nashville. And so I saw in the Christian classifieds, of all things, there used to be Christian classifieds here in Nashville. You could look through and find all the Christian businesses and those who are hiring, and they had a job listing. So I ended up applying and didn't get the first one, but I ended up coming in later. But started off in customer support and tech, and then I moved through a variety of roles in the company as I've been here. So that was 12 and a half years ago. Oh,
wow. So now you're the director of product development, and also work as a technician, senior technician there. So tell me about your role some, and how you work to serve the church in that role.
Absolutely. Well, I started off directly in customer service for about 5 years, and then gradually I moved into managing our computers that we sell, because we do sell computer systems for churches who want to buy that. And so for several years, I did that and shipping, and was doing the senior tech role, helping the more advanced cases. We have a great team, and most questions they can answer. But if there's somebody who has a particular difficult issue they can't answer, it ends up coming up to me, and we work through it. But I still do that now, and I still actually manage the computer end of things as well, which has been a real joy the last year with supply chain issues. But a couple of years ago, I was asked to step into the role of helping direct and manage the software development. Because of my background in electrical and computer engineering, I have done some programming, and so I really enjoy that. And so I've been waiting all these years for this opportunity. And so now I get a chance to interface with our development team and help direct what features we're building and how they're going to look and act and when they're right. And so that's been a lot of fun.
That's awesome, man. Well, I know that you guys work with a lot of churches hands-on in what they're doing for Sunday. And that's some of the stuff I want to talk to you about, is the spiritual end of Sunday, and then how to implement what you guys do from the software side and hardware side too. So let me ask it this way: how can we be prepared? Let's talk directly to the church tech or the volunteer for Sunday. How would you suggest that we can prepare spiritually for making Sunday happen?
Well, I think the first thing is really the way that you approach it. There's a lot of presentations that are done in our modern world, from business to other venues. But really, when we're in the church, we're dealing with ministry, and you are a minister. You have a ministry role. And so obviously, I encourage everybody to really approach that with prayer and with the attitude of service, because you're really there to fulfill a really important role of getting content on the screens for people. And, pray through that and make sure that your heart's right, because, it's easy to come in and you build a presentation and you're really excited about it and you got all these whiz bang things, and it's really dangerous to have that maybe become where it's your show, and it's not your show. So it's really important to remember it's God's show. So.
Good. How can we, as the leader, say I'm a tech leader at a church, how important is that leadership role and showing volunteers the importance of what they're doing? So maybe talk from the church tech leader, and then maybe talk directly to the volunteer of the importance of the role of the presentation operator on Sunday.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I've done some acting, some drama. I think it was Stanislavski, if I'm saying his name right, who once famously said, "There are no small roles, only small actors," or no small parts. There are no small parts, only small actors. And he's really getting to the idea that when you're acting in a scene, there's extras and there's background people and there's people coming in and out of the scene. And I think it was pretty typical a long time ago for those parts to just not be played with any kind of intentionality or motivation. And he really got to that and said, there aren't any small parts. Every part that's there is really important. And it's interesting because that really comes back to and ties into what Paul said in 1 Corinthians, where he's talking about the body. And it's like, you some are a hand, some are a mouth, some are an eye, some are a foot. None of them are less important. And so sometimes it's easy to think, well, I'm in the back, I'm in a booth, I'm kind of out of sight. It's just a small thing. I'm just clicking the space bar, but it's not. I mean, it's actually really, really important. You've got that leader in front who's on the stage and they're singing and they're leading the music. And obviously that's really important. But all the people there are relying on you, or at least the vast majority are relying on you to get those words on the screen just at the right time. And if you don't, if they're late or they're wrong, then it just pulls them out of that worship moment. And so it's really an important role. And so I've come to highly value it.
I talked to a friend of mine who's a musician in New Zealand. He was with some CCM bands back in the day. Grant Norsworthy is his name. He was with Paul Coleman Trio and Sonic Flood. And he was saying, I interviewed him a few weeks ago, and he was saying that the most important position on Sunday is the presentation operator. Like over anybody, the most important role is that role. Because the worship leader can be there and even help lead the song, but the presentation operator is providing the words for the congregation to sing to your creator. And I've always felt this way as a church media director, in that presentation software operator is a worship leader, through song. Is just as much important, if not more important, than the stage person. Would you? And you alluded to this, and you said this, but how important is that role? Do you agree?
Oh, I do. And that really comes back in a couple different areas. Obviously, timing is really important, and it's something that I always encourage people who are running presentation to work on that timing and really make sure that those lyrics are getting up there. In fact, I usually, just to talk a little practical for a moment, I'm always looking to second to last word, third to last word, depending on the pace of the song, hitting that space bar, getting those next words up so that they're there a second or two before people are expected to sing them. If they land right on when you're supposed to sing them, you don't have time to read it. And so it just throws off the whole moment. But I'm going back to my days in audio when I was running sound. I know how important it was when the artists that I was working with had me with them on the road, because I knew all their tracks. In many cases, I'd engineered their tracks. And so I knew, and I'd done enough performances with them, I knew where they were going, and they could just relax, and they could be in the moment, and they could perform their best and do their role best when they knew that all the technical details were going to be handled. And so when that presentation operator is really competent and you have faith in that I don't have to worry about the screens, it's going to be great. and they're following me and they're doing their job really well, then it just allows you as a worship leader, and I've been on that end too, to really just be in the moment and focus on what you need to do.
Yeah, I agree. Let's jump to that. You were mentioning your rule of thumb for leading lyrics, and that's my rule of thumb too, is the word before the last word.
Mm-hmm.
I've been a proponent of that. That's the case every time, no matter the tempo, no matter the, well, it's a slower song. I know, word before the last word. I will own it if it's too fast, too slow. But it was kind of a standard. That way it's not, well, if it's a little slower, then there was just a hard and fast rule, word before the last word. And that usually, I would say 95% of the time, it was dead on accurate. You know, there might be an occasion where they hung and sung on the word a little longer, it was a touch late or something. But talk to me about that, and maybe an overarching topic of being a distraction. If the words are late or not there, it is, I can't. I just cringe in a worship experience.
Yeah, that is, one of the things as I studied mass comm, one of the only things that I remember from intro to mass comm, ironically, was the concept of noise. Now, I was familiar with the idea of noise audibly, sonically, because you kind of grow up with that. You got a hum or a buzz, it's distracting. And if I go to a church and I have gone to some visiting and they've got really terrible sound, I don't go back. I'm sorry. It's just, I can't focus. It takes too much mental energy to get past that. Which is good to know. If you are in that situation, you have that issue, please get them fixed, because you're keeping people away. But noise in communication channel is anything that the audience is experiencing that's not part of the message, and it takes them away from that message. And really, our message, is the lyrics. It's the message in the gospel. And anything that pulls them out of the moment, distracts them, and all of a sudden they're thinking, well, hold it, what happened to the words? What am I supposed to do now? Those are the wrong words. Boom, they're out of the moment. That's noise. And so we want to get that noise out of there as much as possible, and just make it a transparent experience that they never even think you're there. If they never knew I was there, then I've won. And that was, ironically, that's the same thing with sound too. When you're running sound and the audience comes in and they leave and they never thought about the sound guy, you won.
You're right. You did a good job. Yeah. One thing that really distracts me, speaking of this, the same thing is late lyrics. No, like really late. Like I've seen a lot where the whole second line or the whole line on the next one is completely sung before the lyrics change. And so it's this continually late interaction. And it just, you can feel it in the audience when they're singing, and then they're not, and then they're saying, and then they're not. I mean, it's brutal.
And when it's right and everyone is singing, it's a glorious experience. It's what we're there for. And I've been on that end where everything is working right, and the audience is really with it in the spirit, and it's really a fantastic thing. So we definitely want to do that. I will say practically, when I'm doing a presentation, I find I have to sing. And I don't always sing out loud. Like if I'm in a tech booth and I've got a sound guy next to me, I don't want to be singing audibly and then mess up his ability to hear the mix. But I will mouth the words. I'll be singing it in my head, and I'll be, as much as I can be, in the moment and singing with the audience and watching those screens and hitting that space bar so that I'm getting those lyrics when I need them. And if I don't do that, I find it's really easy to just get into tech mode where I'm just like, okay, space bar. And I'm looking at my phone, space bar, Right. If you're in the moment, if you're leading, definitely try as much as possible be in that worship moment. Yeah.
What are some ways this might hit on the stage people on the stage? What are some ways that we can serve our congregation and not perform? Whether this is on stage or in the background too, how can it not be a performance, but a serving our congregation?
Was it a recent worship leader magazine post or something I saw that said that is actually a misnomer, that if you're actually in front of an audience and doing something, you are performing? So I think there is kind of a bad rap around the performing thing, but I get it. I do understand. When you're performing, sometimes you get the idea this is my show, and that's definitely not the case. That's always difficult. obviously you bathe what you're doing in prayer and you go into it with a headspace. This isn't my show, God. We want to get out of the way. We want to not be seen here. We want everybody to see and hear what you want, and which is why we're working really hard to get that noise and that distraction out of the way. But obviously, as much as for those who are on stage, to trust and work with the people who are in the booth, get them involved in rehearsals. Obviously, I'm a big proponent of, if you're doing the presentation, you should be in at least one of the rehearsals, so that you get the flow of the song and you know how it's going to go pace wise and where the breaks are and things like that. But also the wording. It's another distraction is when the words don't match. There's a word or two or just isolated things where you're singing along and you're reading the screen, and all of a sudden what you sing isn't what the leader sung. And it's like, okay. And again, it's one of those little moments, just pulls you right out. And so if you're in rehearsal, you can kind of watch through and you practice what you're doing as well. And then you reading along the screen, like, oh, hold it. I've got a word. And maybe the worship leader wants to do their own word. That's fine. Just make their words and how they're going to do it match what's going on the screen.
So here's one thing that I would do, and I'm going to get your opinion on this, is I would meet with my worship leader. So if I'm the church tech guy, I would plan a meeting every Thursday, and we had Friday off. So every Thursday we would meet in the tech booth. We don't meet in your office with your chord sheets. We meet in the tech booth with the actual presentation software up, and we walk through the songs. All right. Now I want you to tell me this was a benefit on a number of levels. One is what we have in there correct. That's basic. Then also two, I want you to tell me when you guys are doing an instrumental break. We did a rehearsal, but have you changed anything since rehearsal, like with your band? Are you going to do a guitar solo here so that I can put a blank slide so that we'll go lyrics, blank slide, lyrics, so that there's not lyrics hanging there while you have this big, huge, long guitar solo. Or like we even added little labels that would say like drum solo and things like that. We would put the labels on the slides or notate it somewhere so that when I was directing, when we had a director running cameras and things, the presentation operator would actually say guitar solo in 3 slides. Here's your guitar solo. That way it would set up the camera operators could hear that and go and set up a close up on the guitar. So we use the presentation software to, make that happen. But that meeting with the worship leader really helped during the week to set the stage. And then the operator would rehearse with them at least once. And then we would go into it. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, that sounds like an excellent plan. And certainly as much communication as you can get is always beneficial, so that everybody's on the same page and you're not trying to work that out in the moment or at the last moment. Those always end up being harried, and somebody on the stage is like, "Hey, can you go to this?" It's just
brutal. Brutal.
Try not to do that if possible.
That's rough.
But yeah, knowing the flow. It's funny you brought up the TV aspect of things and a director calling shots. I always, and this is odd, maybe it's just me, but it's left brain versus right brain. I always found when I had the cans on my head, it was always one ear, and with the ClearCom. And I found there was one ear, I can't remember whether it's left or right now, but I had to reverse the headset when I got in, because if I had it on the other ear, I couldn't think creatively and be in the flow of the music as much as I was really distracted. Yeah. And I had to kind of flip it around. So, sometimes you have to find those own things that are distracting you and that are unique to your, situation, and say, okay, I need to change this or remove that distraction so that I can focus better on what I need to do so that I'm here for everybody.
That's a really great point. How do we prepare for failure? We know something's going to go down and equipment is going to mess up, technology is going to go bad. How can we plan for the unexpected?
It's hard sometimes, and because it's unexpected, we don't know what's going to happen. A lot of times people don't. And I think most of the time people don't. They're just like, it's just always going to work. Well, it's not always going to work. When you're dealing with computers and electronics, one of the things I always recommend is to have an uninterruptible power system, a UPS, on your computer, so that if you do get a power hiccup, at least your presentation and in some cases, your audio and things are still up and running. That's a minimum. And that's also a great form of protection for your computer from power surges and brownouts and things. So that's obviously a first point. But think through as a team, kind of go through what is our worst moment? What could possibly go wrong? And then kind of talk through and work through what are we going to do when this happens? I know I've been in a case where I was in church a couple of years ago and the power went out and band just kept playing. They're like, you know what? We're just going to keep worshiping. We'll just do it louder. And everybody kept singing and it was fine. We got through it. The power came back up, rebooted everything. And I don't know if they had thought about it in advance. I wasn't involved at that stage in that church, but it's important to know in advance kind of what you're going to do. In fact, as I was thinking through this, I thought, one of the things that you could do is if your worst possible nightmare happened and you couldn't do presentation, you didn't have any computer that worked, your projector blew up and you've got no way to put anything on the screens, it would probably be a good idea as a worship team in particular to have kind of a standard back pocket worship set where this is a bunch of songs we know we can do them without rehearsing them. And if worst comes to worst, 5 minutes for the service, we got to change gears. We pull out this worship set. We've got printed sheets for it. We just kind of keep it in our back pocket for one of those days when we might need it. Technology is, sometimes we call it Murphy's Law. If something can fail, it will. And at the worst possible moment. And that's true. And sometimes I think it's, we have an enemy who doesn't want that message to get out there and they want that distraction. And so they'll take every opportunity to make anything go wrong they can. Yeah. And with computers, obviously, there are so many moving things. I tell people when I'm troubleshooting computers often, I said, I'm not surprised anymore when they fail. I'm surprised when they work. Because when you get into the guts of how an operating system works and software works, and you realize the thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of files that all work together in concert, and all these operations are happening in the background every second, it blows your mind. And you're like, I'm just amazed. They're amazing machines. So they're going to fail. So if at all possible, have a backup system with your software on it, ready to go. And that way you can just swap cables. It doesn't have to be the best. Maybe you used last year's or the previous generation computer. It'll still get the job done. So
good.
I just have a plan. It's really more important. I see a lot of times where we get really frustrated calls from customers who, well, on Sunday morning it went out and they didn't have a plan, and so they had no fallback. And obviously we don't want software to fail or computers to fail ever, but it will. And if it does, it's probably good to have a plan.
What do you think about having two computers? Somebody was saying this on Facebook the other day, and I was offering this suggestion. So I worked for New Spring Church, and this is the way we did it. Might not work for every church, but we had a confidence monitor. So it was a worship leader I was saying, have a limited amount of lines on your screen. Don't overwhelm with 15 lines on the screen.
Thank you.
Right. And so I was saying one thing, this was a worship leader that was saying, I like on the confidence monitor, I like to have a lot more words there. It helps me. So it then translates to the congregation. So I said, well, what you could do is do a confidence monitor position with one computer that they all run the confidence monitor. That's all that person does. And then you have a separate computer that runs your lyrics for the congregation and video content or other media content. That's your congregation, whatever. And this confidence monitor position is great because it was a great entry level position because this isn't seen by everybody. The band pretty much knows the songs. It's just for an extra vote of confidence for them. And so what's your thought on that? Do you agree with two separate computers or slave situation or?
Yeah, there's a lot of different ways to do that. And I've thought about that kind of concept in a number of different times, either with different customers or personally, as I was thinking through features for software. There are a number of things you can do. That's I don't dislike your idea of having that be kind of an entry level, learn your way up, because obviously if you fail, you only fail the band. Of course, that's also like having a guy who's a beginner at running who's the monitor engineer. And that might be more important than the front of house sound guy. So, but that's not a bad plan. I know in our software, the stage display can be and really is quite independent. And so you could, for example, take the 2 consecutive slides and put all the words on both of them. And so as you advance through the pages, the same words appear twice.
It's a different layout for the band than it is the congregation.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You take it for every 2 pages or something on the main display, you'd have one repeated twice on the stage, and they would never see the difference. So you could do something like that. There's a lot of different ways that you could approach it, but definitely getting as much information for the people on stage to be able to have confidence in those lyrics is really helpful. 'Cause I've been there where you're on stage and you know that song and you've sung it for 30 years, and just that first few words of that next line are escaping you in the moment. Right. And so that's a really important thing to have accurate.
It is. All right. Here's a pet peeve of mine that I want to throw out to you. See if you
I love those.
Have this too. Mm-hmm. So it is a really big pet peeve for me to see on screen in a worship experience anything that is not the final product of what you want me to see. Here's what I mean. Is if you were to see a desktop background and a mouse come over and I'm going to click on MediaShout, bring it up, and I'm going to find my presentation, that drives me insane. Yeah. Or PowerPoint.
Or whatever,
or find that maybe the lyrics are in MediaShout, but the pastor's sermon's in PowerPoint, and so they're finding PowerPoint. I cannot stand that. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Oh, I've been there. I've been in conferences where somebody's presenting using PowerPoint, and they're like, "Oh, just a second, I've got that in another document," and they'll pull down the screen and pull up a word processor, and they're finding the document. And it's just like, it's like you need MediaShout, or you need some good presentation software that keeps that as an isolated screen. It's like one of the benefits of MediaShout and of good dedicated presentation software for ministry is that control screen is going to be just for the operator, and they can use that screen. You can keep that cursor off the other monitors, and the only thing on those monitors is what you want the audience to see. So that's a benefit of using a software like ours to do that. And yes, it is because again, it's noise. It's things you didn't intend. It's not part of the message. It's just a distraction for the audience. Get the noise out of there and keep that clean. PowerPoint's particularly susceptible to that because of the way it works, and so many people use it in just overlay mode where it just comes up in the same spot. And so, I don't want to be too hard on people, because obviously if you're getting started and that's how you've been doing it and that's all or that's all you have, then certainly you can do that. But it's now that you know that it's noise, you might consider changing that up. So
Right. All right, I'm gonna play a game with you in a minute, but I got a final question for you. So, tell me about MediaShout 7. Give me some of the new features that you guys are excited about. It's been on the market for a little bit, so you've had a chance to work through customers using the latest and all that. So, kind of tell me some of the new features that you guys are excited about and some testimonies that you might have heard.
When we started into the version 7 project, one of the things that we talked about was, what are the things that are most important to you? And I used I said something similar to what you hear about real estate. There's really only 3 things that matter. And of course, we know in real estate, it's location, location, location. That's really all that matters. With our software, I said at the very beginning, there's 3 things that matter. It's stability, stability, and stability. It's like over the years, because of advancing code bases piling on top of each other, things sometimes didn't work as well as we wanted them to. And so what we did is we started over with 7. We started with brand new code. A lot of different reasons for that, but brand new code, new tools that work with more modern operating systems, fully 64-bit, things like that. A bunch of technical jargon that a lot of people don't understand, and that's fine. But starting over from scratch, we built stability and speed, which I love, and it's prettier. And those of us who do presentations, we're aesthetically minded, and the way something looks is really important to us, helps give us confidence. So I really like how it looks. It's fast. But we do have some new features as well. And certainly we've tried to build on the core of what we'd built for 18 years before that, now 20 or 21. But we added a tool specifically for pastors and people who are putting in sermon notes. We have a thing called Sermon Builder, that if you have your points laid out, you've already figured out, okay, I'm going to have these 3 points and I'm going to use these 3 or 4 or 5 scriptures. You can sit down with that, say, okay, what's your title? Boom, put in your title. What's point 1, point 2, point 3? What scripture passage you want to use? You pick them out, which translation you want to use. And then the next step is just drag them in the order you want. And then we've got, 6 themes. You can pick a graphic theme. It has a background. It has some design elements. And you press go. You're done. And it builds you a script. And it literally builds your entire, and by the way, for those who don't use MediaShout, script is our term for our document, our presentation. So it builds your script. And then the beauty of it is fully editable. You can go in, I made a mistake. You can put a typo, you can add more content to it. It just speeds that process up so fast. We've got a video where somewhere on our website, or at least it was, where, someone builds one and it's like 2-3 minutes. And so you can, if you know what you're going to say, you could at the last minute, I don't encourage this, but you could, you could sit down, enter your information, pick a theme, hit go. You got a presentation, walk on the platform, and it's ready to go. It's going to look good. Obviously, there's a lot of things you can do to customize it. So that's one of the things that we're really excited about. And, it's been around for a couple of years. So now that people are using it, we're probably going to, go back and revise some things about it and tweak it and improve it. But that, and the fact that people always were looking for places to store content. We always were able to store lyrics. You could save your lyrics as you wanted them, and then you could reuse them quickly in the future. But people were starting to store other content, liturgies and responsive readings and announcements and things in their lyric library, because it was the only place that stored them. And so we added a cues library. And so now in version 7, the cues library stores anything. If it's a cue, and a cue, again, to avoid terminology things, cue is our basic element of our script. It's the basic building block. It can be multiple pages, could be a single page. But when you build something that you want to reuse in the future, you just store it in the cues library, and then you can just bring it right back in the future. So, and that'll store anything. If you say, I took a blank cue and I just put some graphics on it, some text blocks, and I got it all arranged how I want it, and I'm going to use that every week or every month, throw it in the cues library, you've got it. So those are 2 of the big ones. There are, obviously a lot of little things, and we're still adding. That's the thing. Because we started from ground zero, we had to recreate everything that we had previously. And so it's been a process, and of course, COVID and business slowdowns and things, don't help with the pace of those things. But we are working still on choosing the things in version 6 that, and previous versions that aren't there yet, and adding those, continually adding those. So that's the process we're on with it. We're definitely excited about it. And I'm always excited about it because when I sit down with it, I can do something that I could never do before. And that is, I can start on the first slide and I can hit that space bar as fast as I can go, and it'll go, it'll blow through the whole presentation. It's fast. Good. It's really fast on marginal hardware. That's the thing. I mean, there's been a situation, a lot of software requires really advanced hardware, and we certainly recommend that you have, good, strong hardware, but version 7 will run on almost anything, and it'll present well on a good, solid mid-range computer. So. Yeah.
Awesome, man. Well, I appreciate all this insight. I love your experience both on the worship leading side and the tech side, and then the technician of writing the software too. I think that you come at it from a lot of different angles, so I appreciate that. Yeah. Awesome. Okay. Will you play a game with me before you leave?
Absolutely.
All right. So we're going to play a game called 5 Questions. This is going to be rapid fire. Some of them are going to be awkward and quirky, and then some of them are going to be we'll go from there. So to test your knowledge. Okay. So all right. So I'm going to hit these rapid fire. Okay, you ready?
Okay.
Number 1, when you cook food in a hot fat or oil, typically in a pan, what are you doing?
Frying.
You're frying it. That's right. Very good.
Well, that's my last name. So.
All right, there you go. Exactly right. I think you're catching on here. All right, when it comes to full screen lyrics, we alluded to this earlier. How many lines of text is too many lines of text to have on the screen? Where's the limit?
4 or 5.
There you go. I said around 5. All right, I like 3 or 4. Yeah. But if you're doing full screen, but 5's definitely your line. All right. Number 3. This popular worship song is being sung in churches right now and executed by presentation operators. I want you to name the song from these lyrics. You ready?
Uh-oh.
Okay, here we go. I'm not afraid to show you my weakness, my failures and flaws. Lord, you've seen them all, and you still call me friend.
Oh, my. Yeah.
Catch you here. I'm going to catch you.
Yeah, you will, because I spend way more time in technology than I do music these days. I go to church and I'm like, that's a new song. And,
there we go.
And my wife will be like, that's been out for like 3 years.
I know. I pull up. All right, Graves into Gardens.
Okay, cool. Awesome. Awesome.
All right, here we go. 10 seconds on the clock. Name 2 worship songs, and you could probably get this, even though you're 2 worship songs with the word shout in the title. 2 worship songs with the word shout in the title. Ready? Go.
Oh, my. Shout to the Lord.
Ding.
I could almost make up a title and just say, I'm going to sing and shout.
I'm sure
that's probably
that's
a song by that name.
Well, that is correct.
I don't know.
That is correct. We'll let you have that.
Yes.
We'll let that. All right. Number 5. What one thing do you wish you could tell presentation operators or other volunteers about the impact that they're making for the kingdom?
Oh, wow. Yeah. Your job is to be invisible and for no one to notice you, but you're not. And people really appreciate it.
Yeah.
It makes a huge difference, even to those who won't admit it. I've seen comments of people who said, they're seniors, we're always into hymnals, and they wouldn't really admit it, but they like the words on the screens because they're having a hard time reading the hymnals, the print, and those words really help them to worship. So.
Yeah, good. Awesome, man. Well, thank you so much for your time today. I love getting to know you, and would really just love to encourage people to find you and to continue to reach out to the MediaShout team. If they are a MediaShout user, tell us how we can get in touch with you. What's the best way to find you guys?
Well, absolutely. Our website is up there, MediaShout.com. And on the site, you can find links to various support resources. We do have free email and chat support, and we do have things like a Plus membership, where if you really find a strong value, and we have a great Plus program, you certainly can join that, and there's a lot of resources available through that, like phone support, things like that. But the website is the best first place to go. If you have questions about learning more about the software, and you have just details and things, a lot of people don't make good use of our knowledge base. We have a knowledge base, support at support.mediashout.com. See if I can say that right.
Yeah.
And but the knowledge base is linked on the main website as well. And there's a lot of articles there that'll answer questions that you can serve yourself.
Yeah.
So
awesome. Thank you so much, Dave.
We'd be glad to talk to you and help, and we're here to serve the church. And that's the thing, that we're made up. Our team is a bunch of great guys. We're all guys at this point, and we really are people who have done what you do, and we serve in our churches, and so we really are going to relate to where you're at. So I
think that's one thing that really sets you apart. I had a good buddy of mine, Aaron West, that used to work with you guys, and and your current team. I think that's one thing that really sets you apart, is you're very accessible, and you really understand what's going on each Sunday and are willing to help and jump in. So thank you for what you're doing for the kingdom, man. Really appreciate it.
Not a problem. Thank you.
Hey guys, Grant Murphy here from the 1230 team. For years, we've worked with some of the largest kids ministries in the country. Folks like Awana, Answers in Genesis, Seeds Family Worship, Yancey, Doorpost Songs, Go Curriculum, Grow Kids, Worship Team Kids, and more. We've taken our experience working with these ministries and launched an entire kids brand called 1230 Kids. With this brand, we have launched an entire ready-made media library, completely dedicated to children's pastors and leaders. In the library, we're producing hundreds of mini-movies, countdowns, games, kids series boxes, packs, social media content, and much, much more. If you're a ministry that serves lots of churches yourself, we offer custom media services to bring your projects to life and can produce about any graphics or video need you may have. We are also committed to bringing you free and affordable training to help you enhance your kids' worship experiences. with our Kidmin blog, books, and other resources that are bringing you knowledge and ideas for leading experts, church staff, and volunteers in the trenches of kids ministry. Tell your kids leaders about us today. Tell them to go to 1230kids.com. That's 1230kids.com.
The show notes for this episode are available now at makingsundayhappen.com.
Hey guys, if you like the content on our podcast, subscribe to our YouTube channel today. Just search 1230 Media or Making Sunday Happen on YouTube to find us. Next week, we are bringing in Mark Harvard. Mark is the communications director at Clear Branch United Methodist Church in Alabama. I'm talking with Mark about crisis management and how to control the narrative when something goes wrong at your church. So when your church gets a lot of media attention, both good or bad, how do you handle it in the best way? That'll be next week on the show. We'll go out there and create some incredible worship experiences this weekend. I'll catch you next week.
Making Sunday Happen is a production of the ministry of 1230 Media. For show notes, archive episodes, and more free resources for your church, visit makingsundayhappen.com.